Flyers, hi, welcome to part 1 of Champion Racing Pigeon Breeding and Pairing Series. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Breeding. Pigeon Life Cycle. To help you understand what to expect from your pigeons, we will briefly follow them for 1 year. Because a year is a long time and many things can, and will happen, it will be impossible to explain everything. We will just explain the basics. Also, please remember that there are very many ways to keep, raise, and train pigeons. When you are ready for more information, go and ask a good flyer. They are almost always ready to help you. Remember, they enjoy raising and racing pigeons. They also know that the sport of racing pigeons continues through new members. As the amount of daylight increases in the spring, hormones inside the pigeons get the birds excited. Cockbirds will begin to puff up their chests and fan their tails as they chase the hens around the loft. The hens also get turned on, so to speak, and get ready to make eggs. By Valentine's Day, many fanciers are ready to mate their birds. Most fanciers spend many winter nights planning on which cocks and hens are to be mated together. When the day comes to mate their pairs together, most fanciers place their planned pairs inside the nest boxes and lock them up. The cockbirds might get so excited that they will scalp their hens. To prevent this, it is helpful to place a brick inside one corner of the nest. This allows the hen to stand above the cock and savor her from a possible pecking. The next day, you let them out to feed and stretch. After they have had a chance to feed and stretch, you lock them up again. After several days, they will begin to pair up. Most become paired up after just a few days. Some may go as long as 2 weeks, and there are a few that will never become paired. Fortunately, those are few and far between. After about 10 days from mating, the hen will lay her first egg. If it is not freezing outside, she will probably not sit on it all the time. She will skip a day, and then lay her second egg. Now she is ready to sit tight and incubate both of her eggs. There are exceptions to every rule, and here is an exception. Remember when we mentioned that it was important to know how much your birds ate? Now, you will notice some extra feed being left in the trough. Here is the exception to the rule about leaving leftover feed in the trough. Leave the food. Some hens and cocks sit so tightly on their eggs or squeakers, that they will not go to eat until their mates are finished eating. When the mates are full, they will come and trade places and sit on the eggs or squeakers while the pigeon previously sitting on the nest can go and eat. The hen will sit on the nest from late afternoon until mid-morning. At mid-morning, the cock will go into the nest and take over for a while. Now the hen can stretch and relax. Late in the afternoon, she will return to the nest and take over once more. During this time, both the cock and hen begin to form pigeon milk. This milk is made from partially digested grain. They will pump the milk into the newly hatched squeakers when the squeakers place their bill into the bills of their parents. The first egg will begin to pip after 17 days. The squeaker uses an egg tooth to hammer his way out of the egg. 1 day later, he will crawl out of his shell. After the first one is hatched, the second one will begin to pip his shell. The cock and hen will both feed the squeakers pigeon milk. Pigeon milk is partially digested grain which forms in the parents' crops. The squabs grow fast. By the time they are 5 to 7 days old, they will be covered with quill feathers and are ready to band. As the days pass, they will reduce the amount of milk and feed the squabs more and more whole grains. The parents also will be eating more and more, so be prepared to increase their feed ration. In 5 weeks, they will be ready to fly and the parents will be back on another set of eggs. The squeakers are now ready to wean. Just move them into your young bird section. They will be eating and drinking as well as the adults in a few days. Preparing for the breeding season. With the racing seasons all behind us now, we are blessed with the chance to all become kings again, at least in our own little kingdoms. Almost nothing is more relaxing than sitting in a favorite chair, reading lamp on bright because the day becomes night sometime around 5 to 6 p.m. now, with a stack of pedigrees in front of us, each one begging to be next year's primo breeder. But, alas, we know better because we have the race results in the next stack. It's time to prepare for breeding season, and while pursuing the pedigrees of last year's breeders is a wonderful way to while away an evening, it's time to get down to some serious work if we want to work our way up that race sheet come next year. Many people make a list of things to do, and it looks something like this. 1. Check out the auctions, see if there are any good birds within my budget. 2. Go through my breeders and see what I feel like keeping. 3. Feed the birds once a day at noon, for the next month or so. 4. Talk to Joe about getting something out of his good pair. 5. Take a nap. Well, I'm here to let you know that if your list looks like the one above, you better unbuckle your belt a notch or two because you'll be spending more time in the buffet line next year than you will in the winner's circle. There's some serious work that needs to be attended to if you want to be good at this game, and we're going to talk about a few of them in this video series. This series will cover the 4 most important parts of the off-season, or getting ready for next year. Here's what we'll cover. 1. Selection. Who are your first string breeders? Is there a need for a second string? 2. Feeding. Fat pigeons don't like to make whoopee. 3. Medication. Listen to your mama, make everything clean before you start. 4. Upgrading. Auction tips and pitfalls. If you do your homework, listen to good advice, as opposed to advice from well-intended flyers who are never at the top of the sheet, and follow through with your plan, then your next racing season will have the strongest possible foundation upon which your skills as a handler will then become the true test of your team. Selection of your breeding team. Put your first string team on the field. Okay. So the racing season is over, you've had a little break, the weather has turned and snow is fast approaching. At least for us here in the northeast part of the USA. It's time to start the next racing season. As the old saying goes, races are won in the preparation. And that's what we've got to get doing now. Like a good sports team, it's important to have a game plan, so let's put a list of things that we need to do as we begin selecting who our first string breeders will be for our team. Here's a list that I think makes sense. First, review your race team performance. Decide who stays on the old bird team, and who goes. Look closely at your breeders. Compare 2 years ago to last year, if you have the records. If a pair hasn't bred multiple winners in each of the last 2 years, consider repairing them with new mates. If they haven't bred more than the occasional one-shot wonder, then it's out they go. Bas Verkerk, Gerard Koopman, and Marcel Sangers, all top professional European pigeon racers, not fanciers, but true racers, employ the same breeding program. You may have thought the roundabout system was only for old bird racing, but their system could easily be called the roundabout breeding system, and it works. Second, make a plan. One of the biggest mistakes that fanciers make, myself included, is getting too many breeders that are simply just wasting feed. Sit down and see what birds are breeding winners for you. Forget about the fancy advertisements of the feather merchants. What works for you and your system? Is it a family of birds? Are the best breeders somehow related? Are they crosses, or are they simply the best birds from your old bird and young bird race teams? Where did these good breeders come from? Were they gifted? Were they OOA racers sent in to be on your team? How did they end up on your breeding loft? Once you have identified your top breeders, if you have a hole or two that needs to be filled, then you can consider looking for that 1 or 2 special pigeons that will help upgrade your breeding team to be a better contender in the races. Part of your plan will be to decide what type of birds you are trying to breed. Never thought of that before? Well, it's one of the most important parts of your plan. If you're breeding for your own flying, racing and enjoyment, then you need birds that will be horses for your courses. If you live in northern Illinois, and you want to breed birds to compete in the Snowbird Race Series in Southern California, well, then, you need to rethink the type of birds you will be breeding. There are definitely horses for courses, and by that I mean that pigeons are designed by their genetics to be better at one kind of course over another. Racing over the deserts and mountain ranges in Vegas, California, Utah, and other places is certainly quite different than the humid, flat and hot courses flown in Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, you get my point. Too many flyers make the mistake of thinking they can buy their way to the top of the race sheet. What they fail to take into consideration is what their personal goals are, where they want to succeed in racing and the types of birds that it will take to win there. Ken Easley of New Mexico is a newcomer to racing, but certainly not to pigeons. A world-class competitor with performance rollers, no, a world champion with performance rollers. Ken has had pigeons for decades but only recently took the plunge into racing. Never one satisfied with less than the best, Ken set his sights on the biggest prize in the racing sport, the Sun City $1 Million Pigeon Race. After fine-tuning his skills over a couple of seasons and setting new club records across the board, Ken has made his plan to not only be competitive, but top the Sun City $1 Million Pigeon Race. To do so, he searched out the breeder that has more consistently put birds into the top of that race sheet, and won that race outright with a very modern family of birds. A complete team of breeders is in quarantine right now from this winning loft, to be combined with his winning family of racers at his New Mexico loft, and will be the foundation of the plan that Ken has in place to take his place as the #1 pigeon racer in the world. Part of Ken's plan to top the Sun City $1 Million Pigeon Race is his very successful breeding program called Pretzel Breeding. Through this program, Ken developed his world champion family of roller pigeons that kept him at the pinnacle of the roller competitions. This same program has proven very quickly to be the path to success in the racing game, as well. So, to summarize, to move up in this pigeon racing game, keep only your very best proven breeders. Then, have a plan in place to take you where you want to go. Then go do it. And that's it for part 1 of Champion Racing Pigeon Breeding and Pairing. We will continue with breeding season in part 2, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Your free breeding nest card and pedigree templates are below this video. Thank you.